That's exactly right. Well, thank you. Um, it is live. I'm content, by the way, to look like an idiot. I did do this. I did a lot of these kinds of streams back in the day before I was Catholic,
Okay.
and I think I was just more of a natural back then. With when now that I have children and stuff, I feel like God set me up to be a buffoon and to just be embarrassed continually and constantly distracted. I don't know if you have that experience.
Um, well, I mean, I've given my positions quite a bit of thought,
Right.
and I haven't wavered from them. Like I've told you, I've been an atheist my whole life. It's never like I was a believer at some point and I gave it up and became an atheist. I was born an atheist and I've remained one my entire life.
That's
Where
interesting.
what's that?
I said that's interesting because most like because I was a I guess I don't know what you mean by born an atheist. You
Born
were
into a
born
secular home.
right. Okay, there you go. Yeah. So like I used to tell people I was born an atheist. So I guess I could say I was born an atheist, and then I became more religious over time. And most people I meet, like the atheists I meet, are the ones that were religious. The ones that have thought through their positions. Usually they've changed at some point. So I mean,
Honestly, mine's been reinforced.
so that's interesting. Don't you? Because you've met a lot of atheists, right? Do you know what I'm talking about? Like a lot of them were in
Oh
religious
yeah,
households. I mean,
oh
they
yeah,
talk
for
about it.
sure, for sure. I mean, like a friend of mine on Discord was a card carrying Bible believing Christian for 40 years,
Right.
and took him like 2 years to get out of it and like deconvert, I guess. He calls it deprogramming. But eventually he kind of said he came to his senses and was like, I can't believe this anymore. It's just not, it doesn't work for me.
Right.
So I mean, and he's pretty solid in his position now. I would wager that he's just as solid in his position as I am, and I've been one my whole life.
Right. Well, so that's what I'm saying. When you said you've been one your whole life, okay. So I'm Roman Catholic. So
Yep,
most Catholics I know, the ones who converted are much stronger on their positions and they understand them more thoroughly.
sure,
So so you're an exception. That's what I'm trying to say.
kind of, I guess. Just because I've never had any kind of connection to God or religiosity or spiritualness or any of that. Like I've nothing. So that's why I said my original position has been reaffirmed throughout the years, not dissuaded.
That's really interesting to me. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, do you have a lot of friends like that?
Um, and not. I mean, yes and no. One of my best friends, believe it or not, is a young Earth creationist.
Oh, good.
Um,
Well, cool.
and it's
That makes you feel more comfortable.
I mean, we just don't discuss it,
Right.
right? Like we get along great, wonderful guy, salt of the earth kind of, take his shirt off his back. But that's the one thing that we just don't discuss because, in my opinion, he turns into a completely different human being when we discuss it.
Oh, really? He's
It's
not
just it's like the reasoning faculties turn off.
really.
Yeah. And now it becomes very dogmatic and the reasoning faculties come off, and this is someone that does magic tricks and likes the that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? so
Yeah.
he so he even knows that he can be deceived and that he deceives others, into
Right.
believing things
Right.
that aren't true. So um he's interesting, I'll just say that. Yeah.
Is he? I mean, it's almost like I don't know. I kind of got upset about this with. I said earlier that I might complain about the way, like one particular group of atheists was treating me.
Mhm.
Um, there's always like this assumption that I am irrational. There's not any kind of conversation or anything like that. I just walk in, and
Yeah,
you know what I'm talking about? They're just like literally
I
on
do, and I can tell you why.
why?
Because we deem faith as an unreliable path to truth. So therefore deeming it irrational by definition.
What is faith?
Believing in something without evidence or in the face of opposing facts.
Okay. Um,
At least in the religious term, because that's kind of what we're talking about. I hate it. I hate equivocating faith with, trusting my wife and that. Like, my wife exists. We have a relationship. I don't have this relationship with God, so it's not the same to me.
right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Well, that's the thing is like, well, there's a big conversation about that because people don't define it. Like people, it's a big argument between Catholics and Protestants. I actually edited a collection of newspapers from a woman, a journalist, that she was a Thomist. She studied Thomas Aquinas, and she cataloged how Martin Luther kind of changed the meaning of faith, so that it used to be that faith was a virtue that meant to believe, like you're saying, not necessarily things that have no evidence, but just things that are not they're just told to you.
See, I think that religion turned faith into a virtue because it had to.
That's fine. But yeah, okay.
You
Fair
know what I
enough.
mean? Like, because
When did it do that?
without faith being a virtue, it's just being gullible. Like, it's just, believe this book because it says so, or a believe me or trust me, bro, kind of argument.
Well, most of the arguments, I mean, most of the articles of faith are not, explicit in the Bible or something like that. You kind of have to believe it. The way the church defines it traditionally is faith is the intellectual assent to what the church teaches, and the objects of faith are things that are not contradictory to reason. You just can't reach it by reason. So like, and I think that's what atheists say about it. It's like there is nothing that shows us um, the Trinity through pure human reason. We believe in it just because the church teaches it to us.
But isn't the biblical definition of faith believing in those things unseen?
Yeah, sure. I mean, but you can believe in things that are unseen, like $1 million or whatever, and that's not faith. That's just yes. There's a biblical quote related to that, but it's not the most precise definition of it. It's clearly not a particularly precise definition. But yeah, but
So
if you deal with like people outside the Catholic Church, they'd probably give you that Bible quote. That's the problem with the Bible is it's not the greatest for precision, you know. Otherwise, there would only be one faith. There would only be one church, and there is only one church, but only one true church, basically.
is there anything that I could not believe based on faith alone?
Can you reword that?
So this is obviously hypothetical. Could I believe based on faith alone that white people are better than black people?
No, I don't believe so,
Why not?
because the church doesn't teach it, and it would be contradictory to reason.
No,
You
but
know,
I can still believe it on faith.
um, well, okay.
There's nothing stopping me from believing that on faith.
Well, see, that's where the definition of faith becomes really important. I mean,
Right.
historically, I mean, it's really an interesting conversation. I mean, so like the definition of faith I'm working with is the virtue of intellectual assent to everything the church teaches. And the church doesn't teach that white people are better than black people. So you can believe it on and they have a word, by the way. I mean, the church has a word for the sin of treating things as if they were objects of faith that don't have that value. And it would be, in some cases, it'd be superstition, which is a sin. It's like, there is a Trinity. The church teaches it. Because the Catholic claim is that Jesus Christ is God, and he walked the earth and taught the apostles a lot of things, more things than are contained in the Bible. Even they're all referenced by the Bible. None of them contradict the Bible, but it says in the Gospel of John, if everything Jesus Christ did and said was written down, there wouldn't be enough books for the whole world to contain it. So everything that's an object of faith is from that teaching. It's from what Jesus Christ taught the apostles, and the church is protecting it, and it's called the deposit of faith. And the church has charged the apostles and their successors and the bishops and the church fathers, all these people, is charged to protect that and not let it change. And it's an article of faith that it will succeed at that it won't ever change. The doctrine, the dogma won't ever change.
Okay. So are you taking it on faith that this book is the true message of God?
I am now. I probably didn't originally.
Okay.
Originally, when I read the Bible, I mean, it was more. I didn't. When I read it the first time, I knew that people extolled it. I wanted to achieve like some success in life, and I knew that people valued it. In fact, I specifically started in the Old Testament because I could not at that point believe that Jesus Christ was God, and I knew he was towards the New Testament, so I started from the beginning. And then I did come to believe that it was accurate, mostly because I've been a reader and a writer. My parents gave me books at a young age, and the way it was structured, particularly Genesis, made it very believable to me. And I didn't become a young earth creationist at that point, so I think I basically skipped over the first couple chapters without worrying about it too much. It was about when it got to like Abraham, I would say, is when I was like, well, this is probably accurate history, just because the detail and the way it was written convinced me. Does that make sense?
To some degree.
It's a development. But now I take it on faith. I mean, I understand where it came from and stuff. One of my biggest problems with the Bible is it never read to me like what people said it would. Like in America, people think, people say, well, this is an instruction book for life. This is God's love letter to people. But you read it and it's like Moses killed 1,000 people in the desert for rebelling against him. It doesn't sound like a love letter to me. You know what I mean? So
now, do you think that Christianity adopted former religions and former traditions into itself?
No.
Really?
I actually think that. Well, I guess, what do you mean by Christianity?
Well, I mean, like the Moses story and like the Epic of Gilgamesh.
Right. No, I think that the original thing that happened, that's the true religion. It wouldn't be called Christianity because Christ didn't come yet. I mean, you could say it's the religion of the Messiah to come, the Christ to come, but usually people mean after the incarnation. So I would say that true history that, Noah lived, he told his history to his sons, they told their history to their sons. This flood happened, that was preserved accurately. I even have a friend that kind of catalogs it from the point of view of archaeology and looking at like Babylonian tablets and things like that. And so that history, especially in the Bible, I think that is the accurate stuff. And I think Gilgamesh and these kinds of things where this guy, where there's a lot of like orgies and they're like violently killing each other and this very like, I think those are basically perversions of the true story of what actually happened. Which, not to say there aren't evil things that happen, but it's just kind of this weird pointlessness in a lot of paganism where the gods are just acting demonic or like people. They're acting like people. And St. Augustine said that, by the way, about the pagan gods, that they were real people that were worshipped, like Julius Caesar and Augustus.
So do you not think that it's okay? So we have about what, a 30-year gap in Jesus' life that's unaccounted for within the Bible.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah.
And during his lifetime, there's absolutely not a single contemporary historian that wrote about what he was doing, the miracles he was performing, everything. There is nothing of an
Really?
actual contemporary historian during his lifetime that wrote about it.
That's the first I've heard of that. That's interesting.
If a messianic preacher was wandering Judea claiming to be God and performing these miracles, you would think that somebody at the time would have wrote about it.
Well, I would think so, yeah. And like I said, that's the first time I've heard that. So yeah, that's very interesting. I mean my initial knee jerk reaction is the impression I get from the catalog in the Gospels is that the people, the Jews, the Pharisees, and the scribes did not like him and did not want to promote him, So that would be like, like the three wise men coming to Herod and they tell him where he's going to be born. It's, I mean, like when you read people commenting on that, some of the famous commenters like Cornelius Lapide and whatnot, they point out that his people hated him from the beginning, just about. I even had somebody point that out to me as far as like when he went to the temple as a young man, he was instructing the doctors and they barely paid attention to it. And I think that's kind of consistent. I mean, even now today, like there's a new interest in poor people, but the common man is just overlooked, and I think Jesus Christ came as a common man.
But even so, let's kind of further the story a little bit and let's go to the crucifixion narrative.
Sure.
Now, from my understanding, the three people that were crucified were Jesus and the two thieves beside him. Am I correct?
Yes, I believe it's like, I know Saint Dismas was the good thief. And I think the other one was something similar, like Lemus or something weird.
Okay, so theft was not a crime that was punishable by crucifixion during Roman tradition.
Okay.
Secondly,
what about robbery? Like if somebody was a brigand on the road for decades, was a robber.
I don't know.
Okay.
I know about theft because they're always talked at as the thieves on the cross, right?
Yes.
So I didn't look at the robbers on the cross kind of narrative, right?
I'm just wondering because I've read stories about those two and their background, and basically they're explained as robbers, like literally brigands out on the road.
And the other thing is that to think that the Romans would have done the Jews a favor of executing this guy doesn't again jive with Roman tradition, because tradition was once someone is crucified, they're left on the cross to be pecked apart by birds and other things. They're not taken down as a form of humiliation.
Right.
And once they are basically dead and kind of pecked apart, they're kind of thrown into a mass grave.
Right. That's what they did
So-
with the cross.
right? So
They threw it into a
the
latrine, actually.
the chances of Jesus being transported or the body being transported would have gone completely against Roman tradition at the time.
Was it? I mean, Pilate seems like he's very afraid of the Jews rebelling, and they did shortly after that, and that's kind of given the reason why he did everything he did. Is he was just kind of pushed over by them.
But if they rebelled
Is
anyway,
it such a
then
strong tradition that they wouldn't make exception to it?
they've never.
Huh, that's interesting.
And there's no records of them either.
Okay,
Ro-
well, fair
Ro-
enough. I mean,
like the Romans kept pretty meticulous records, and there's no records of Jesus Christ ever being executed. Interesting.
I don't know if I believe that.
You can fact check me. Yeah.
Yeah, I
I,
mean, I'll just have to look into it. Yeah.
I'm sure that some people wrote about it after the fact to kind of ad hoc their way into the story, I think, and
Well,
to
define.
add.
I mean, define record, because I mean, there's a lot of records that are rejected prima facie by a lot of people. Like the Gospels are a record. That's what they are.
They're a record, but the problem is that they're
I mean,
by
I don't
anonymous
think they're the.
sources, right? Like they're not the sources are anonymous. So how accurate can we, or how much of an accuracy rating can we give a record that doesn't identify its source?
What do you mean they're anonymous?
Well,
Like
the,
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John.
yeah. Do you actually think Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John wrote the Gospels?
Yeah.
Those were names attributed by church fathers after the fact. The Gospels are anonymous. It says so in the Bible.
Really? Okay. Well, they've carried those names for quite a long time. Well, fair
No, I
enough. I
know,
mean,
because like again, those names were attributed by church fathers after the fact. But the gospel writers themselves, it says so in the Bible that they're anonymous. They've just attributed these names, or they gave these names as part of church tradition.
so it says that in the Gospels. Where does it say that? That's
Um,
fascinating to
I'm
me.
I'm not sure which edition it is, but before one of the editions, before one of the gospels, it says that these gospels are anonymous, despite there being the names that put on them.
Is it the So it's not in the text of the Gospel, but it's in the like edition notes. Because I know they started doing that in like the 1800s.
Yeah. Again, I don't know where exactly it is, but I remember seeing it. So
Yes. No, I believe that. I mean,
yeah.
if if we're coming from different paradigms and whatnot, but you can catalog, you can go through history and look at how in the 1800s there were a lot of scholars, especially German scholars, that just started to say that miracles don't happen. And then they started rejecting every historical record that has a miracle on it. And then after that, you had critical biblical scholarship where they just started coming up with all these different things to poke holes in what people had accepted for 1800 years. And I'm familiar with those theories. I haven't actually ever had to like, I've I've gone through the study materials dealing with that whole period of history where people started approaching the Bible that way. And I know it's now you read Bibles and they put it in there that, oh, okay, well, these people have questioned this, these people have questioned that. Um, um, I've never been too interested in it because it didn't seem like it was that popular of a theory. But I guess now that I'm dealing with atheists, I'm not surprised that that is the
Sorry
difference. But I wouldn't assume it.
just to go along the same idea there. So
Hmm?
all right, even if I were to grant that part of the story. He was crucified. They took the body, and now what? The body's gone, right? The tomb's empty. The body's gone.
Sure.
No one has seen the body leave. The Roman guards never got in trouble, which they should have been, because they were standing guard for a reason, apparently.
Weren't they the Jews guards? Like the Pharisees put that guard on there?
It was Roman guards.
Okay. I recall. I'm probably drawing from the Gospels, but I believe the Pharisees the ones who put those guards there. In which
I
case,
could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure that they were Roman guards, because I remember reading the story that it should have been Roman tradition that they would have got a pretty good beating for letting a body disappear.
sure. Let me. Do you mind if I go get my Bible? I feel
Sure,
like I should open it up. One
sure.
second.
Yep.
All right. Just in case everyone knows too, Mr. Watkins here. Okay. He's an atheist too. You two are really good atheists. I like you guys. My children, I've had a long day. I was doing nothing but farm work, and it was a lot of fun. And then there was some like social obstacles I had to deal with between my wife and some other women, and so I was pretty exhausted.
I hear you. Trust me.
And my children are still not quite sleeping. So we're doing it more of a casual thing. We're not actually like hardcore debating because my wife
Yeah,
wanted.
no worries, no worries.
Right,
So I
which
just
is
want
better for both of us.
I just
Go ahead.
wanted to get out at one more point, sort of.
Yeah, sure.
If Jesus was God on Friday and he's God on Sunday,
Mm-hmm.
by definition of a sacrifice, there must be a loss. Okay, so without a loss, there is no sacrifice. And
Okay.
if someone is God on Friday and they're God on Sunday, in my opinion, there is no loss. You're still God. Ergo, there is no sacrifice.
Okay. I mean,
Thoughts?
what I would normally say, I guess I'll just see what you say about it, is God added to himself a human nature, and the nature of humans is a um, what they call it. I don't want to say hybrid, but it's both material and immaterial. It's the soul forming the body the material, the soul, and so
Okay.
the separation of those two would be a loss. That's what I would say.
You'd have to demonstrate to me how the immaterial could affect the material, because that to me sounds like your shadow can punch you in the face.
Well, your shadow can affect you. I mean, it can block
But
the
but
light from your eyes, for instance.
it can't do anything to me physically.
Well, blocking light from you would be a physical thing. I mean,
My shadow cannot block light.
it is right now. There's a light behind your head, and the
Right,
shadow.
but it's not blocking light for me. It's blocking light for something else.
It's shading your eyes. You're not receiving as much
Yes.
light, so that's a
Yeah.
physical thing that it's doing to you.
But again, the shadow itself has no physical properties. It can't affect me.
Okay. Well, so maybe I should. So I wouldn't. I would call I would call a shadow physical. I would call it physical. It's a
Okay, why?
physical. It's a physical property. It can be sensed with the eyes. That's probably one of the big things about it that makes it physical. It's the absence of light. Um, Now there are certain things about a shadow that are non-physical. It's in a form. It's in a shape that's non-physical, and that's probably what you're talking about. And that can affect you. If I see a shadow um, on a wall in the shape of a human being, and I'm not expecting it, I'm alone, that might fill me with fear and cause me to, cause my heart to race, and it will affect me. You don't
Well,
think that's the case?
if you see a disembodied shadow, sure. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about the everyday normal shadows, right?
Well, I
Like,
don't have to see a disembodied shadow. Somebody shows up behind me, the light happens to be behind him, I'll see his shadow, it can be bodied, and I'm going to be disturbed by it because it indicates something um, even further beyond it. Um, another another good example is if you're alive
but
right
there's
now.
something,
uh,
still there creating the shadow. There's a physical object there that's doing something to create the shadow. It didn't come. It didn't just manifest out of nowhere.
okay, so now we're talking about something else. Now we want to talk about if the immaterial is created by the material. Is that what we're talking about now?
How the immaterial affects the material is what I'm after. By
Yeah,
what method?
because it's interesting. Yeah, because I see what you're saying. The body was there. You could even say the light was there, and the body interacting with the light creates the shadow, right? So
Yes.
the shadow by progression, not necessarily in time. I mean, if it's instantaneous, let's say, I guess you say the speed of light, whatnot, but by progression, the shadow is after the body. So the material thing comes first, and then the immaterial thing. In that example.
Sure, but again, the shadow itself has no material or physical properties.
Okay, that's fine. That's
That's
fine.
what I'm getting at.
This is a
So
very. I
how
mean,
so,
I'm with
how
you with this.
something that has no energy, no physical properties, no way of tracing it, detecting it. How can this thing have any effect on me or you or anyone? And I'm kind of obviously equating
I
that
don't
with
think.
God.
Right. I don't think the shadow is a great example of that because a shadow can definitely affect you. But I see what you're saying. I feel like we can have a. I mean,
I mean, it's kind of hard because
a shadow is less than a person, right?
okay.
So it's probably not the best example for us to work with if we're talking about God. We're talking
Well,
about
God's
something
kind of
that
a special category.
it's a very special category, yeah. But we'd want to at least go in his direction. This is what I was going to say about the shadow comes after the body. Well, that's because the body is greater than the shadow. Well, if we talk about other immaterial things, like you could be sappy and say love, for instance, um, which I suppose a lot of atheists equate with chemicals. But what about war? Is war, you know, what is war? Is war a physical thing?
Could be both. It's both physical and mental.
Okay, that's interesting. How do you know when somebody is at? How do you know when a country is at war?
Well, they're probably their militaries are going at it,
Okay, so
or it can be it could also be an economic war. So it doesn't have to be a military thing. It could be an economic war too.
okay, what's no, that's very interesting. So how would you know about this occurrence, this like military going at it or whatever?
Well, the military one would be pretty obvious. Like you see one military, military country's military crossing over borders into another country's, territory.
That's
The
interesting. So is a territory, is a border physical?
It's arbitrary. We've kind of created these lines on a map.
Right. Yeah, because a lot of people, I live in Texas, a lot of people are very upset that the border isn't physical.
I can understand that. See, I live in Canada where we have the largest undefended border in the world between us.
Yeah, and that's cool. And I honestly, I like Mexico. I like Mexicans. I think that America abuses Mexico. That's my opinion.
Like,
Um,
like literally, there's so many places. Like the majority of the border between Canada and the U.S., you can literally just go back and forth. There's nothing there. You can just take a
yeah.
step in one country, step in another, and there's nothing there.
So that's a good example of an immaterial thing. So
Right, but it's something that man has put an idea to. Like, okay, here's the line, and anything on this side of the line is this. Anything on that side of the line is that. Like, that's just something arbitrary we've done.
right, right. I agree with that. I might even say it'd probably be an argument, but I might even say that man is above borders as far as like value or something like that. But
Generally speaking,
it affects you though, that border.
sure, sure it
So
does.
does that give you a worthwhile example of something immaterial affecting the material?
No, because even though it's not quote unquote material, it's still seen as a physical thing. So if I
So it's
were
an
to
idea.
no,
That's
no,
what you
but
call it.
if I were to cross the quote unquote imaginary line with a whole lot of drugs, they're not going to be too happy with me, even though it's a quote unquote an imaginary line, right?
Right,
Like I'm going to get in trouble for it,
right.
right? So whereas if that line was just not there, I could go back and forth with as much drugs as I wanted to, and no one would care.
Well, you'd still be affected by possession laws.
Well, not for something like marijuana, it wouldn't. That's legal up here, right?
Sure, that's fair. Yeah, fair enough.
So I could carry a pound of marijuana with me, no problem. The second I try crossing the border, problem.
Yeah, I
Is
mean,
it
you
that's no longer imaginary. That's a pretty real line.
yeah, what I mean, they have limitations on like alcohol and I think like
Sure.
tree seeds and stuff like that.
Yep.
So why
Food. Yeah.
so why is that not so is that does that not count for an example of something immaterial affecting the material? Because you could even say like because you were talking about being arbitrary, being at man. Well, usually it's laws, right? And
Right.
it's
But
law,
I mean, generally, I'd say like anything that came from the mind of man is subjective.
but that came from the mind of multiple men. That came
Sure.
from a, and so
And and
that
probably a
right
couple of
there is
wars in between.
that. Say again.
And probably a couple of wars in between.
Right, right. Which is it's not just like the idea in one mind. It's an idea that is communicated between many different minds and even living minds and dead minds through writing and stuff like that. And so that's why people say, well, this is society that has done this, or this is community, or this is nation or state or whatever. These are all really immaterial things.
It's funny. It reminds me of I don't know if you ever seen the movie Blow with Johnny Depp, and he's in court and he's talking to the judge about how he crossed some imaginary lines with some white powder and no big deal kind of thing, and the judge's like, well, the lines are real, sir, and you crossed them, and this is your punishment. And you know what I mean? It's like as much as you
Right.
might like to think that they're arbitrary to you, they're not to somebody else.
Yeah, that's the thing. They're real. They're real and they're immaterial. That's
Right,
what I'm trying
but
to get across.
it's actually at a plane. It's not just something that's floating in the air. Like there's a point at which countries change. We know where that line is. It's not. It doesn't fluctuate on a
Yeah.
yearly basis.
Yes. It's well. That's very interesting. Well, okay. Let me not get down into. I was thinking to digress into like a stationary Earth and talking about that for a minute, because it does change. In some, in most atheists' mind, I guess it would change, but Then you bring out relativity, and so, anyways, forget that. Um, so it's real, and it's solid, and it's not like wishy-washy, but it's very specific, and it affects you. It's even, it has authority over you. I mean, all those things seem like a good example for understanding God, because like the philosophers and whatnot, like Plato, they all talk about ideas. Like Plato talks about forms and things. It's these things that affect the material that are immaterial, where you can see that the material is below it. You know what I mean? Like the immaterial has authority over us. You don't get what I'm talking about? So like that's why materialism doesn't make sense, because in the whole way society is set up, there's just this assumption, this working assumption that these immaterial things like law, border, um, that are attached to physical things are above them and more important than them, you know?
I'd say materialism is the only thing we know.
Say it again.
I'd say materialism is the only thing we know.
Well, that's not true, because we just talked about laws and boundaries, and those are all immaterial. Now, if you mean by materialism that even those things are understood through material, then that's fair. I'll grant that. And I think that must be what people are talking about. I mean that is what we're dealing with.
But even
But
an idea is a material thing. It's a concept in a brain.
which
So
brain?
that in itself is a material thing.
So in which brain is the concept of the Canadian United States border present?
Anyone that cares to cross it,
Okay.
if you don't care to cross the border, then you're not gonna care. And then just a line in the sand that means nothing to you because you're not gonna cross the border no matter what.
That's very interesting. So, okay, so you said it's a material thing in the brain?
Yes. Yes. You can
What?
actually you can actually weigh your thoughts, as crazy as that sounds. You're I always give the example, to imagine a purple elephant. Well, that purple elephant doesn't exist in your brain. The concept or the image of the purple elephant exists in your brain. But what is this image? It's a collection of your neurosynapses firing and the neurochemistry in your brain that's creating this image in your head, right? And these things on an atomic level have weight. So you can actually weigh your thoughts at an atomic level. They're not completely immaterial. Because the firing of the synapses in the brain is done through electrical impulses. These
How?
electrical
Yes, sure. Okay, so it's I understand what you're saying. Yeah, because electrons have weight.
have an atomic weight.
Yes. So how? Because a purple elephant, I know elephants existed. I went to the zoo some months ago and I saw
Sure.
them. A purple elephant would probably be an elephant that had been painted purple in some way or dyed or whatever. I think an elephant's hide is similar to a pig's hide, but I could be wrong. So
A lot thicker.
yeah, yeah. So you could probably tan it, or well, you'd probably be able to tattoo it, because pig skin is very similar to man's skin. Like pigs will
Yep.
sunburn stuff like that. Anyway, so here's this purple elephant, right? That we have tattooed purple. It exists in Taiwan. The real thing. Or we could talk about something more present. Here's this Bible, right? Um, that exists. And then there's the thought of the Bible that I had when I went to go get it. Why does the electrons, because the electrical firing is the movement of the electrons.
Yes.
So here is one atom that has a weight, And then
Yes.
here is another atom that has a higher weight, because an electron has a weight,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not a negative. It's a negative charge, but it's not a negative material. It's not
Correct.
it's not anti-gravity or something weird.
Correct. Yes.
So, sorry, I'm
No, no,
not
all
that
good.
okay. I'm not that smart. So do correct me if I screwed something up.
You're good.
So atom here, atom there, and the electricity is the change of it. So the movement of that thing. It's not
Yep.
here, so it happens over time. So how in the world, though, is that incredibly like microscopic movement between two very microscopic things? How is that? Because I can think about that now in my mind. I can picture this movement because I've seen models and I can picture it. I've seen electricity. I've worked with electricity. I've run wires. I've eaten a brain. I understand what a brain looks like, which is interesting in of itself because the way electricity. So it must be like electricity moving through water because the brain's very wet.
Yep.
So how in the world is that anything like the thing which is representing? You know what I mean? It's like what you described as a thought. And I'm fascinated. I know this is significant. Like, this is the object. And then that thought, the material thought that you can weigh, seems like it's nothing at all like this object. So why do I picture
Sure.
this object? You know what I mean? Why does that,
Because that's
why does it
the
work like that?
why. My honest answer is I don't know.
Right.
How
Okay.
how we kind of do.
Okay.
So the why, it might be some evolutionary byproduct. I'm not going to say I know when I don't. That's my best guess.
Okay.
Now, how? Yes, because before you had a concept of a book in your brain,
Uh-huh.
you must have seen one,
Sure. I might have seen a representation of one, but no, I'm sure I saw one.
right?
Sure.
So even the Bible you have in your
Now the
hand,
purple elephant, granted, I saw a representation before I ever saw an elephant. But
no,
go
but
ahead. I
like
don't want to complicate.
even the Bible that you got in your hand, you've held it many times. You know what it feels like, right? So
Right. Yeah,
you have
senses.
right. So you have that sense memory in your brain for for that material object,
Right. That's exactly
right?
what Aristotle said.
Right, but that doesn't make the material object in your brain.
Would you say the image of it is, or the representation of it is?
The thought of it is,
Because,
yes.
like, if I have a cell phone and I have a picture of the Bible in the cell phone,
Yep.
then you could say the Bible's in the cell phone, or if it's downloaded or something. But the material facts behind, and I think about this all the time because I try to explain it to my children. Like,
Yep.
what are you doing on the computer? I'm opening a file. Wait, no, I'm not. I'm pressing buttons, and
yep.
there's something happening, and we call that opening a file. You know what I mean? So relating it to the material reality is a challenge.
I mean, you'd have to get into the tech, and I don't know how, kids can only understand so far, trying to explain how a hard drive works and how data is stored on a hard drive, how that's brought back when you trigger certain points of the hard drive and so forth. So that might be a little bit complex for a kid to understand, but
Right.
we've obviously made these things. We know how they work. We've designed them, engineered them, and they function.
Yeah.
As obvious right now, we're using it to communicate.
Right. So we can kind of, because when I talk, so we can kind of skip that level of the material reality and just talk about what the representations are doing.
Yes.
So that's fair. So then if you talk about that in the brain, which the brain is dispersed throughout the body, right? It's not just in the head.
Huh?
You don't agree with that? Because you have the whole nervous system. I believe, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, but for what I've heard, and I talked to a PhD about this recently, and he was talking about it at a different level, because he was talking about um, quantum mechanics or something of that nature, and these quantum particles. There's this quantum field dispersed throughout the whole body that's like in the billions of these particles. But the brain itself is dispersed throughout the body because it sends electrical signals all over the body, right? The nervous system and everything like that.
Um. Okay. I think definitionally, a brain is normally within, the skull. These other things like the nervous system and our senses and stuff feed into our brain to help us understand the world. But I don't see them as extensions of our brain, so to speak. I see the whole mechanism functioning as a cohesive unit for the most part. But
Right.
I don't see the nervous system as an extension of the brain. It's just something that's giving the brain information.
Okay.
Just like
Well,
eyesight.
we're probably getting beyond our expertise. Um, I'm trying to remember why I brought it up. Do you remember?
Oh, so what I was kind of getting at was, do you like I don't see how a mind can exist without a body. So
Why not?
and and that's what God basically is. It's a disembodied
Yes.
mind.
Yeah, exactly. Not disembodied, but yeah, a mind without a body.
How?
Um,
We have nothing, absolutely nothing that shows us this can be even a possibility, never mind probable.
what do you mean by? I mean, we have a lot of historical records and things like that. I mean, we have people talking about ghosts and demons and angels, throughout all of history. I mean, so from a historical evidence, you say there's a lot, tons of evidence. From an empirical evidence, if you're using like the scientific measure method, well, you're measuring physical things, so
Oh.
you wouldn't. Yeah, obviously, you wouldn't find any. There's
See,
no
but
way you.
I don't think that history could ever prove a miracle.
I don't think science could ever prove a miracle.
True, because it's not looking for it.
Sure, I mean, sure, yeah. So in the record, you just have people who record miracles,
Right, but
and that's it.
why do I have to accept that as true?
You don't. You don't have to.
Why would anyone?
Um, well, the same reason you would accept anything anybody ever told you.
Well, okay, great, but then I'd still go and fact check them if their claims were outrageous. Like if you were to tell me, Tom, I went out and got a puppy yesterday, little German Shepherd puppy. I'm like, great, Nathan, happy for you. Hope the puppy works out and doesn't pee and poo all over your house. I'm not gonna question you about it because people get puppies all the time,
Sure.
right? And it's a quite a normal thing. The absolute worst thing that can happen from you telling me this is you lying and you losing credibility with me for believing you on anything else further to that, right?
Right.
Now, if you were to tell me that you have a purple leprechaun living in your closet that only you can see and speaks to you, well, now that level of evidence has drastically jumped up, and I'm going to be like, okay, Nathan, this is no longer a puppy claim. You need to show me,
Sure.
right? So, just like Christopher Hitchens said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. And it's absolutely
Sure.
true,
Yeah.
right? So, with this God claim, I'm expecting some extraordinary level of evidence, and I'm
Well,
seeing nothing.
well. I mean, you haven't seen nothing, but what do you mean
But I,
by
but I,
extraordinary?
but I,
It's not.
but I
It's
truly
not out
haven't.
of. It's not out of the ordinary. If I told you I had a purple leprechaun, you'd think, well, that's very strange. Nobody's ever said that to me. You must be joking. But if I said I pray to God, you'd be like, oh yeah, people do that all the time. That's not.
Sure.
I know
And
exactly what you mean.
so here's a fun analogy I like to throw out. So
Sure.
if I put a vacuum cleaner in front of me, right? And I started telling this vacuum cleaner all of my life's problems and what I want out of life and where I'm not happy and
Sure.
kind of where I want things to go. Anyone looking at me at that moment would think I have absolutely lost my mind, including yourself, right?
Yeah, but that's because the vacuum cleaner is understood. If I happen to
No,
eavesdrop,
but just hold on a second.
okay.
Now, I take the vacuum cleaner away, I put my hands together, and now it's okay.
Yeah,
That
there's
I
nothing wrong with that.
that I
If
don't
I
get.
I don't see why not. I mean, if I happen to eavesdrop on you,
Yep.
and let's say you're like an 80-year-old man or something like that, or let's say you're a 50-year-old man, which is more reasonable, and your father's dead,
Okay.
and you are trying to make a tough decision, and you imagine a conversation with your father, who you know well from your memory, and you're having
Let's
a
have a cigarette while we
conversation.
talk. Go ahead.
That's fine. I'm drinking a beer. Um, well, you get where I'm going
We
with
all have
that.
our vices.
um, it's not advice, but fair enough. Yeah, so
Either.
that wouldn't be odd. Like if I mean, it might be weird in the context. I'd be like, it'd be strange to listen to you do that. It's kind of a private thing, but it would be a reasonable thing. It's like, I remember my father. He was a wise man. I've had all this experience with him. I can interact with him in my imagination as a way of understanding the way he would look at things. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's probably how a lot of people engage in prayer. That's not the only way to engage in prayer, but that sounds like what you're describing. Whereas if I imagine talking to a vacuum, well, then I'm just making a joke. But if I imagine talking to my dead father, it's not. Everyone understands. They should understand that you're not a madman. You know your father's dead. People have imaginary conversations all the time. It's a way of thinking. It's a way of, like, I write books. I write novels.
Sure.
It's chock full of imaginary conversations. There's these fictional characters, and I actually go through and think about how these people talk, and they represent certain personalities and certain aspects of the human nature and certain examples, and sometimes they're very similar to people and sometimes they're not.
Yep.
But there's nothing wrong with that. It's not irrational, it's not unreasonable. And that is how most people engage in prayer. And that's kind of, I mean, a person, see, if you imagine talking to a vacuum cleaner, the reason why it's crazy is because a vacuum cleaner is below a person. It's an idol. It's the same, actually. I mean, the way people talk to like Chat GPT and stuff is kind of like this, from what I hear. It's not a person. It's not as intelligent as a person. It doesn't have the faculties a person does. But there's nothing wrong with interacting with a person to learn, because it's equal to or better than you. And that's how people have engaged, not just with God, but with angels and demons historically, and they would call it gods. And the Bible calls them gods, you know. Nothing wrong with that.
So,
I mean, some people commune with nature or whatever.
have you ever heard of a guy named he passed away. He's called James Randi.
I can't remember. Sounds
So
familiar.
he basically had a 20-year challenge, an open challenge. He had a TV show where he had a $1 million bounty on anyone that could come on his TV show and demonstrate the supernatural.
Okay.
Many came and made absolute fools of themselves, and not a single person ever collected the $1 million.
Okay.
Does that not lead to some credence that the supernatural cannot be reliable in any way, shape, or form, given that he spent 20 years in an open challenge
What I always find is it's a matter of the criteria of the demonstration. If you, in fact, I'm talking to somebody about this on that group I was talking about. If you restrict somebody to methods and terms that by their nature cut off the material, like any atheist that says, I believe in atheism because I believe the scientific method is just the best way for understanding the world, then yeah, I'm not surprised. The scientific method.
Oh, you cut out there on me. I'm not sure if you're still there, Nate, but you're completely frozen.
There's your
Oh,
problem.
there we go. You were totally frozen there for a while.
Yeah, it's probably my internet. I have a satellite. They call it Starlink
Oh
for
yeah.
marketing purposes, but it's just a satellite.
Okay.
In fact, it's probably less efficient than if it was a dish. That's my thinking. But did you hear what I said?
No, because you totally cut out.
Okay. I said the problem I've always seen with any atheist that asks for a demonstration is they always restrict the demonstration to particular methods or criteria that cut off uh, the immaterial from the beginning. You know, like
So, I
Go ahead.
mean
So
the
anybody
one.
who's any atheist that says I believe the scientific method is the most reliable way for understanding the world, it's the only way that I think we can attain knowledge or whatever, the best way or whatever, however you word
Yep.
it, then yeah, then that makes sense that you would not believe in God. The scientific method cannot prove God from what I can see of it, because God is not this. He just doesn't fall under it.
Okay.
I know they've used it on things like the Shroud of Turin, um, other like I think they've used it. I know they've used it on the Blessed Sacrament many times, um, and there's all kinds of science you can look into about that. In fact, one of the recently beatified people, Carlo Acutis, made a website about this. Um, so they've used the scientific method to talk about things related to God that are physical, like the sacrament, like some relics and things. There's all kinds. They do all kinds of scientific tests on that kind of stuff, but
Yep.
it won't prove God. And so my guess is, without looking into it, is that this guy just would not accept any demonstration that wasn't in a very strict mode. And you just
I mean
the only thing you could do is prove that there are other things that are non-physical that cannot be measured by the scientific method or cannot be measured by empiricism. And then after that, it's an open ball game. You got to figure out, well, what's the best way of understanding the world?
See, I just think that we don't have the technology to measure everything yet, right? But
Sure.
eventually, we will have the technology to be able to measure things that we can assume they're there, but we don't know for sure.
I mean, I think eventually we're going to have the senses to see things that are immaterial. You know, eyes of glorified bodies and glorified eyes. I think that's true.
See, again, I'm a physicalist, so I don't think that the immaterial even exists, right?
What's the
So
what's the difference between a dead body and a living person?
all the electrical impulse in the brain and body is cease to function.
Okay. Your definition is different than the medical definition.
Yes.
Okay. Because brain death defined by medicine is not all the electrical impulses cease, because they continue for a long time. Because having you slaughtered an animal,
Yep.
like, there's still electricity that goes after that
Sure.
death. Yeah, so that, I mean, and maybe you'd modify that. But
but it's not any kind of conscious thought. It's just the nervous system reacting at
okay,
that
well,
point in time, right?
what's the difference between a conscious thought and a subconscious thought?
Well, I don't even think it's a subconscious thought. I think it's just the nervous system reacting when you slaughter an animal.
Yeah, I was given that as an example. The medical definition of brain death would there's a certain arbitrary level of brain activity, and when it falls below that level of activity, people are considered dead. Now, those same people will still have a beating heart, they'll still have
Sure.
sweat, they'll still feel things, they'll still have thoughts.
Well, I
But the
don't know about
medical
that, but if you're brain dead and you're being kept alive by machines, I don't know if there's much thought left in that brain.
well, some of those people are not just being kept alive by machines, but
But I'm talking about the ones that are.
there's a resource for this called there's a man, he's Dr. Paul Byrne, but he opposes this because basically it's a way they define death and so that they can harvest the organs very quickly. And if you waited until what you and I might consider dead for sure, well then organs like the heart would no longer be salvageable. And
Yep.
so that's significant. But point being that your definition of no brain activity, I don't think would work because there is still electricity in the brain at that point. I know the medical definition doesn't work because people are still alive very often after that.
Yep.
Um,
Listen, Nate, I gotta get to bed here.
okay. Well, it's
Let's
been good talking to you.
likewise. Let's put a pin in this. Make a note somewhere, or I can make a note, and we can literally pick this up right where we left off.
Okay, I hope I do better next time. Well, God bless you, sir.
You did just fine. Trust me. All good.
Thank you.
Have yourself a great evening.
You too.
All right. Cheers. Bye bye.
Bye. This is a new program. I was trying to see if Mr. Watkins shared it with me. I was trying to see if it would if I could mess around with it after time. Oh, he said we'll need to cut off soon. That explains why I felt like I was talking to a wall. I was like, I must be saying something really stupid. I was reading through this stuff. Immaterialism is the only thing we know. That's what the point I was trying to make. Sometimes their consciousness returns. Yeah, to see that whole thing is arbitrary. Thank you for calling me a great Roman Catholic. Names attributed to the authors. I know about that. It's almost like insulting that they put that at the front of these modern Bibles. For sure, John, Luke, Matthew, who am I forgetting, and Mark wrote the Gospels with their names on it, and it used to never be a problem. It's not the church. They say that about everything. Now, I mean, I don't want to insult Tom. Tom's very smart. There's been between us and the church fathers, there's been 1800 years of people attacking Christianity, and most of the arguments don't hold water. Usually people footnote other scholars, and then those scholars footnote other scholars, and then the third scholar footnotes the original scholar. And so it circles around, and they just run off their own steam. And it's the same thing like when they discount the conquest or the Exodus. It's like, well, you have all this historical record that says like Jericho, the wall imploded for some kind of strange earthquake, except for one section where in the like poor people's district where one particular house is still standing and where you would find prostitutes. And and then all the historians reject it because they already said, well, if the Exodus happened, it would happen 100 years later, and there's no evidence 100 years after that. So therefore, it's not true. But it's just a mathematical error they made in the beginning. So, all right, I don't want to. I think my goal was not to like sit here and take the stage, but to read through and show that I'm listening to you people. And I kind of wanted to avoid arguing with Tom because I wasn't in the mood. I've just had a long day. Look into the names attributed to the authors. It's just I've never seen anyone who made that argument seriously. I know people open up modern Bibles and they see it written there. So I don't know. I probably would have to have some material with that. I just don't have it close to hand in the memory because nobody ever hits it that hard. Usually a little bit of confidence is pretty much all you need. Good. All right. Well, you two people who listened, thanks for coming. Don't those people kept alive by machines resuscitate? Well, basically, what happens is they give a do not resuscitate order where they kill those people and then harvest their organs. Or actually, really, they harvest their organs while they're dying. That's what they do. Look into Dr. Paul Barron. It's terrible. Do not be an organ donor. It's my recommendation. All right. God bless you all. And thank you for coming. I don't have an outro video. I'm working on it. That's right.